Thanks so much for joining us today for our episode. Before we get into today's topic, why don't you take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also check out my Substack where you can subscribe for my newsletter, which comes out every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And you can also follow me on Instagram at @realishan and on BlueSky at ishanshrivastava.bluesky.social. I hope to see you in those avenues as well. But today's episode, we are going to start with this individual. This is Representative Elise Stefanik. She is the representative for New York's 21st Congressional District. And she is a prominent House Republican, and she has made quite the name for herself over the past few years as quite the MAGA loyalist. She was also, accordingly, tapped by President Trump to serve as his UN ambassador, so the United States' ambassador to the United Nations. Quite the interesting title for someone like Elise Stefanik, who has been a MAGA warrior, but she actually was not always the MAGA warrior. She was a moderate Republican, even during Trump's first term, actually. She was so far down that lane that, in fact, when Trump had his first tax bill back in 2017, which gave tax cuts to wealthier Americans and did also add to our deficit, Stefanik was one of the Republicans that actually did not vote for this piece of legislation. In fact, she voted against Trump's tax bill in 2017. She then took quite the radical shift after the 2020 election, kind of subscribing to the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen. It was not. But she bought into this whole big lie thing. And so she started fully embracing the MAGA agenda. And in accordance with that, she was also elected the House Republican Conference Chair, which is the #3 House Republican. This was after the ousting of former Republican representative, I should point out, and prominent Trump critic Liz Cheney. Old listeners of this show back when it was a podcast would know I covered this story. I also covered Elise Stefanik's rise, and it started very much like we started noticing her after this whole incident, because as soon as Liz Cheney was ousted from this role as the House GOP conference chair, Elise Stefanik was making phone calls and was able to solidify that position very quickly. So she is really she's skilled. Politically, she's skilled. She somehow went from voting against Trump's tax cuts to becoming one of his favorite people in Congress. Her nomination was seen as a commitment to the America First ideology. And actually, as a matter of fact, Stefanik was one of Trump's first picks after winning the election in 2024. Like, even before some of the more prominent names that we've heard, Stefanik was in that initial roster of people that Trump picked to be in his cabinet in the role as UN ambassador. So you know that Trump very much had his eye on Elise Stefanik and had different plans for her. And this job of UN ambassador, it's a nice one. It comes with this really nice penthouse in New York City. It's really fancy. You get a nice car. You get to be a member of the president's cabinet. You get a security detail. And Elise Stefanik was ready for it. She was really excited to have this job. Many people in politics said this was her dream job to have. And she was so ready for it. She even embarked on a farewell tour in New York's 21st Congressional District. And I know I just laughed, but you'll understand why in just a second. Take a look at this news report from Albany.
Congresswoman and UN Ambassador designate Elise Stefanik began her farewell tour at Quaker Springs Fire Department to thank those who voted her in to represent the 21st District 10 years ago.
As we begin to close this incredible chapter and embark on a new one, and I look around this room, it's going to be hard for me to get through this without crying. I see so many faces of amazing people and dear friends who have just been a part of this journey with me for the past 10 years.
Now, the reason I laugh that she went on this whole farewell tour was because Yes, on Thursday, we're recording this a day early, but on Thursday, President Trump, surprising people, moved to revoke or to withdraw Representative Stefanik's nomination to be UN ambassador after months of stalling in the Senate. They were stalling her nomination. She had already cleared the Foreign Relations Committee's thing. It was just a matter of a floor vote. But they pulled her nomination because it was stalled. And it wasn't stalled because Stefanik wasn't a good candidate. In fact, if you ask me, compared to totally non-DEI hire Pete Hegseth or anti-vaccine HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Elise Stefanik was actually a really solid political choice to be UN ambassador. Like, she was skilled, and we've seen, like, she shifted from being moderate to this and elected House GOP conference chair. She had the chops to be UN ambassador. So what happened? Well, it was because of razor-thin Republican majority in the House of Representatives and the potential impact of special elections that are coming up this Tuesday and the theoretical special election that would have taken place for Representative Stefanik's seat. And I'll explain all of this, but that kind of leads us into what today's episode is about, which is about the upcoming elections on Tuesday. And why Stefanik's seat matters, I will go into that in just a bit. But the reasoning that they gave for pulling Stefanik's nomination, someone who was, I would argue, qualified for the job, someone who dreamed of having this job, and someone who was in President Trump's good graces, was cited, the removal was cited as being a thin Republican majority. And it just goes to show how weak Republicans are right now. President Trump likes to say that they were elected on a mandate, that the American people love everything they're doing. I don't know if dismantling Social Security is something the American people are a fan of. I don't know if dismantling the Department of Education is something the American people are very fond of, or freezing federal funds or threatening to take Greenland. I don't think any of this is something the American people were very crazy about. But there was a quote I saw somewhere, and they said that if President Trump had a mandate to lead from the American people, they would not be pulling Elise Stefanik's nomination in the House of Representatives. But they pulled it because there is this idea that maybe, just maybe, the American people are not happy with what President Trump is doing. And if they somehow pulled Elise Stefanik out of the House of Representatives, her seat might be in jeopardy. But that's a longer term thing to look at. I think the bigger topic that we want to look at is the elections coming up on Tuesday. And right now, this Tuesday, there are 3 important elections that I am keeping my eye on that you should also be paying attention to, 2 of which have to do with the House of Representatives, and they both have to do with Florida. So in Florida, 2 congressional districts are holding House special elections to fill vacancies in the House of Representatives. One of them was cleared by current National Security Advisor and Signal group chat enthusiast Mike Waltz, and former Attorney General, one-week nominee, not actual Attorney General, but one-time nominee Matt Gaetz, who resigned from his seat in the House of Representatives after he was nominated. That nomination didn't last very long. But so there are 2 seats that are vacant right now in the House of Representatives, and these 2 seats are holding special elections this Tuesday to decide who will take those spots. And so right now, in the balance of power in the House, like I said, is very narrow. I think it is, if I can see, as of right now, the balance of power is, I think, 218 to 213 seats. That is a really, really narrow margin in the House of Representatives. And if Republicans win these 2 seats, those were previously Republican-held seats, so that would be really nothing of a big deal. But if Democrats win these seats, and not even win these seats, because these are reliably safe Republican seats that we're talking about. They are very reliably Republican seats. But if Democrats are able to chip away at the massive Republican majorities in these districts, it's going to be a sign for the Trump administration that the American people are not happy. Because if Democrats are able to make progress in Trump plus 30, Trump plus 15 districts, it's a sure sign that things aren't looking too hot for them. So first race that we're looking at is Florida's 6th congressional district. And in the 6th district, Republican State Senator Randy Fine is going up against a public school teacher named Josh Weil. I think one of the better types of candidates to field, a public school teacher who can run on this whole thing about how this administration is dismantling the Department of Education, for example, hurting public education. Anyway, Josh Weil is going up against Randy Fine, and this race, for no reason, should have ever been seen as something that Democrats would have even considered. Yet, we are getting polling right now in this reliably Republican district. We are getting polling, a recent poll that showed Fine, the Republican State Senator Fine, holds 48% of support compared to Weil's 44%. That's a 4% margin, which is incredibly close for a district this pro-Trump, and actually puts this race within the margin of error, because the poll that I just read to you had a margin of error of 4.9%, which means it could go either way, which means Josh Weil could theoretically also pull ahead according to this poll. And that just goes to show that this is one of those examples of how Republicans are weak. They are not doing so good. They are struggling. This is again, I cannot keep emphasizing that these are reliably Republican districts, that Democrats are doing pretty well in terms of polling. Then there's Florida's 1st congressional district. This was the one that I believe was held by Matt Gaetz. And so in this race, Florida's chief financial officer, Jim Petronis, is running against Democrat Gay Vallimont, a gun control activist. And in the 1st district, we don't have a lot of polling, and the Democrats are not as confident about winning. I should point out, in the 6th district, the one that we just talked about, Democrats actually believe they might have a shot at winning this seat. That's already a crazy deal. In the 1st district, they're not so sure they might win, but they are very happy and very, I'd say, satisfied with the type of fundraising data we are seeing coming out of the 1st congressional district. According to the numbers that we have gotten in the 1st district, Vallimont has raised about $6.5 million, which is a huge amount for a House race. But compare that to her Republican opponent, where she has outraised she has outraised her Republican opponent by about 4 times, I believe. And in a Republican plus 19 voter index, according to the Cook Partisan report, or an R plus 19 district, Gay Vallimont is raising $6.5 million, 4 times the amount of what Jim Petronis has managed to shape up. That's disappointing when you're in a reliably Republican district this way. And that money goes a really long way to TV ads, to mailers, to paying staffers, to paying canvassers. It goes a really long way. And so they should be happy seeing these types of numbers. But back in the 6th district, the one that I just talked about, where Democrats actually think they might have a shot at winning, Democrat candidate Josh Weil has managed to raise $10 million in campaign contributions. That is a crazy amount. And that significantly surpasses Randy Fine's fundraising efforts. I think this one is like 10 times or something like that. It's a crazy difference. And Republicans are like, it's a candidate issue, it's a candidate quality issue. $10 million is a crazy amount for any House candidate to be raising. And so the fact that Josh Weil is raising $10 million in a Republican district in a special election in April, which isn't even a normal cycle election, Democrats should be happy and should be kind of reassured about their chances here. I'm not saying that they're going to win, but even if that margin of victory, instead of being 30 points, is like 15 points, that's 15 points that have been lost. And if you extrapolate it and apply it to the far more vulnerable House districts, there might be a possibility that we start to see Republican representatives, start to grow a spine and start to push back against some of the more unpopular policies of this administration, like the tariffs that are going to raise all our costs, or the dismantling of the Department of Education, which is going to hurt education in this country. So those are two congressional races. And if Democrats in some crazy world win those, that 218 to 213 becomes 218 to 215. And there are two House vacancies in the Democrat side due to the tragic, really sad passing of two Democrat representatives. However, those are reliably Democrat districts. So if those get filled, that becomes 217. Not to say that Democrats are going to win those two seats in Florida, but if they do, Republicans have problems on their hands because they're not even 3 months into this whole charade and the American people are already pushing back. Then there's another race that I'm looking at, and this one actually is a bit more close because I am in this state right now in Wisconsin. There's a very important and prominent Supreme Court election happening in this state, and it's garnered national attention because the balance of the Wisconsin Supreme Court is on the line right now. And that Supreme Court race, it's currently 3 liberals and 3 conservatives on the court, but 1 liberal justice is retiring, which has created this whole thing for a balance in the Supreme Court. And so Judge Susan Crawford, the Democrat-endorsed candidate, again, this is a nonpartisan race, but the Democrat-endorsed candidate, the liberal candidate, Susan Crawford, is running against Brad Schimmel, the Republican-favored candidate. And this race is, again, a nationwide race because there are a lot of issues in the Wisconsin Supreme Court that are coming up, including abortion rights, labor rights, among so many other topics. And actually also fair maps in Wisconsin. It's this thing that the Democrats have run on, fair maps, about the gerrymandering and how they want to fix those maps. And those maps might go to the Supreme Court, redrawn maps, which could alter the number of seats that Democrats and Republicans can win in Wisconsin by making it more fair or more unfair. So this race is incredibly important. And I only highlight this race as being important is because Elon Musk, the president's top campaign donor and pseudo chief executive officer of this country, maybe, I don't know. But he is making a lot of strides in this election. He's making a lot of efforts. And in fact, he has donated over $10 million to support Brad Schimmel in this race. It's about $10 million has been funneled through to make this, I think, actually, yeah, that is what the stat is. This is the most expensive judicial election in the history of this country. Elon Musk has managed to make that happen. So Susan Crawford is running against Brad Schimmel. Trump endorsed Schimmel, and former President Barack Obama, the liberal justices on the court, among a lot of other Democrats, have endorsed Susan Crawford. So this is like a big proxy war for the Democrats and Republicans right now. And the possibility of this seat potentially flipping and maybe going to the Republicans or the conservative majority, or maintaining Democrat and liberal control. Again, another tea leaf on how this administration is doing. If Democrats are able to pull ahead in this Supreme Court race, it's going to be, once again, a pushback against the Trump administration's really, destructive policies in some cases. If they don't, then that's going to, once again, correct things. And in fact, if Brad Schimmel's winning here, then I'm sure in Florida, Democrats accidentally fell into a pipe dream again. I don't know, but it seems like, now the reason I think Democrats can be hopeful is because across the country in special elections, we are seeing Democrats overperform in districts. Democrats are doing really good in special elections across the country. And a lot of the examples, because again, we haven't had big examples. This Tuesday is going to be the first big example of how Democrats are doing. But some of the examples we have had over the past few months include in Iowa Senate District 35. Democrat Mike Zimmer won a special election to fill a Senate seat, Iowa State Senate seat that was held by their now Lieutenant Governor. This is a pretty Republican stronghold. Zimmer managed to secure this seat with 52% of the vote. This is not traditionally what we see this district favored Donald Trump by a 21-point margin just in 2024. This election happened on January 28th, just a handful of weeks after Trump was elected president. In this district overwhelmingly sent him with 21-point margin. This same district now elected by 52% a Democrat. In Minnesota, in a House district, a pretty safe Democrat seat, although the Democrat won 70% of the vote. That was a special election because of residency requirements. That became a little confusing, which restored a 67-67 tie in the Minnesota House of Representatives, which now once again necessitates bipartisan cooperation on legislative matters as opposed to Republican majority that was there initially. In Pennsylvania, there were two important elections that happened just this week. First, in State Senate District 36, James Andrew Malone, State Senator-elect James Andrew Malone, secured a very narrow margin of victory against Josh Parsons by 500 votes. Very, very narrow margin. This same district overwhelmingly supported Trump by, I think, a 15-point margin. This district sent Trump to the White House just a few months ago, about 4 months ago, with a 15-point margin. This same district just sent James Andrew Malone. In Pennsylvania, in a state that Trump won, that people knew the White House, the road to the White House went through this district. Districts like these are sending Democrats. In Pennsylvania House of Representatives, the Democrats have once again regained control of their state House of Representatives after the Democrat in House District 35 managed to win a seat. Again, not flipping the seat, but was able to just win this seat, restoring House control to the Democrats in Pennsylvania. All of these are examples that I'm pointing to, and it's not just here, it's in states like Virginia and in other states. I cannot remember off the top of my head right now what some of those states are, but I know that there are states across the country. I just gave you 3. There are more states where Democrats are actually overperforming and doing really good compared to even just this past November, but even historically speaking, Democrats are doing really well. And so that's why when I look at the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, when I look at Florida's 1st and 6th congressional races, it doesn't look as bleak when you're talking about districts that Republicans won by 15 points. It's not actually as stark or as big of a mountain climb as it may seem, because we are seeing examples across the country right now where Democrats are actually performing pretty good. And if Democrats manage to win victories in these states, it's going to be a message to Republicans that the American people are not happy with what they're doing. What are they not happy with? What are they not happy with? Dismantling Social Security, dismantling the Department of Education, giving a billionaire basically total access to the federal government, ruining foreign policy, sucking up to Russia. Like, none of this is anything that anyone was interested in. And I think the American people are making their voices heard loud and clear. And it should send a message for the 2026 midterms, which Democrats are already favored to win. But if Democrats are winning by these types of margins, who knows? And so coming back to Representative Elise Stefanik, that withdrawal of her nomination underscores this concern that even in a district like hers, which she won by 24 points, a district that Trump won by 20 points, that they were concerned that potentially, Republicans could lose or have an embarrassing performance in it. Donald Trump said it best himself. Take a look.
And I said, look, there's a lot of room for doing that or something else. But she's very popular in her district, and I didn't want to take a chance. I don't even know who else is running. I assume somebody else would have been running. But if she runs, she can't be, you never want to say can't be beaten, but I think can't be beaten. She's very, very well-liked and very smart. And I said, Lise, would you do me a favor? We cannot take a chance. We have a slim margin. We don't want to take any chances. We don't want to experiment. And she polls like I do. I won her district, as you know, by a lot of points.
I mean, Donald Trump is saying it. He didn't want to risk it. Not that he said that even Elise Stefanik could win there, but he felt more safe with Elise Stefanik running in that seat as opposed to anyone else. And that just goes to show that Republican leadership are scared. They're scared. They know that the American people don't like a lot of the things they're doing. They know that the American people are dissatisfied with many of the things they're doing. We've already covered the town halls that are happening across the country now, how Republican leadership is saying that we're not even going to have the town halls anymore so they can insulate themselves from the public. It's these types of things that they are doing that, once again, just show that they are not serious in terms of governing. They know that their many policies are not popular. And so they made this decision to take away Elise Stefanik's dream job from her, even though she worked, I mean, I've followed her career. She worked really hard to be that UN ambassador nominee, and they just took that away from her because they knew that many of the policies that they are putting in place are just not popular. And the American people know that. And so can I say that poor policy has cost Elise Stefanik her dreams? I don't know about that, but what I can say is this. We are going to keep an eye on these elections. On Wednesday, I might cover these elections. There are also these big tariffs that are going to go into effect on Wednesday, so maybe I might cover those tariffs and then talk about the elections later. I don't know. We're going to look at what we decide to cover, but that is all we have for today. If you liked my commentary, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you never miss another episode. And you can also subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now, or you can go to the link that's also listed there. You can follow me on Instagram at @RealIshan and on BlueSky, you can follow me at ishanshrivastava.bluesky.social. And you can stay in touch that way as well. But thank you so much for joining us today. I'll see you in the next one.